Washington. What a mess. Looks like the Congress, Nancy Pelosi and her people have taken it right into Christmas, and now they're delaying it. And you were a former speaker. You're one of the most knowledgeable. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I think the whole thing is just crazy. Let me say, first of all, that ironically, while the Democrats in the House were voting to impeach Trump, the Republicans in the Senate were voting to approve 12 more federal judges. And they just keep building a solid constitutional conservative judiciary. One out of every four judges now has been picked by Donald Trump, which is an amazing turnaround. And because they're deliberately picking people who are under 50 years of age, they're going to have a domination of the courts maybe for 30 or 40 more years. So that's happening on the one front. On the second front, of course, the president ignored the whole thing, went out to Michigan, had a huge rally with tens of thousands of people. And then there's Pelosi, who I thought was almost goofy in what she did. You know, she made a big point that this had to be solemn, that her team, the Democrats, were not allowed to applaud. They weren't supposed to celebrate. And she even, when someone started to make noise, sort of frowned them down. There's a picture of her from the speaker's chair looking very tough and very sort of like mom telling you to shush. Then she turns right around, having told everybody this is going to be a solemn, serious, historic event. And she ends up deciding that she'll announce off the cuff, immediately after the vote, that she may not send it to the impeachment to the Senate. It was so confusing. The reporters were yelling at her because they couldn't understand it. They couldn't believe it. I've never heard of anything quite like it. And I think it makes the whole thing look even more political and, frankly, even dumber. So I don't know what she thinks she's accomplishing. I think it just weakens the whole case. The Democrats did such a terrible job, couldn't put together anything that would stick, ended up coming up with two phony charges, and couldn't even carry all of their own people, didn't get a single Republican. And in that setting, if I were her, I'd be trying to get it over with. I'd want to get out of it, not get into it.
The fact that it's just the Democrats that voted for it, doesn't it look to all American people as just a political razzmatazz?
Yeah, and I think that's the key test for an impeachment. Do you think it's about a real issue, or do you think it's just politics? Because if you think it's just politics, you know, you're going to get killed by the average American who does not want to see the president of the United States in a position where if you don't happen to like him, you try to get him out of office. I mean, that is not what the Founding Fathers had in mind. It's a very dangerous, very bad idea. And I think as a result, we have to recognize that what they're doing, I think, goes right at the heart of the American Constitution. We don't have a provision that says, I don't like you. We don't have anything in our system which would suggest that you could have an effect, what would be an effect in the European system, a motion of no confidence, which in the European system, if it passed, they'd have to step down. Well, we don't have any provision like that. The Founding Fathers envisioned a system where people were going to be very orderly, very organized, where you would serve a fixed length of time, and you wouldn't leave office unless there was some profound criminal reason to get rid of you. And they're very clear about that in the Constitution. And in every way I can imagine, the Democrats are just making a muddle out of this.
And Mitch McConnell, how is he going to handle it? I mean, if Nancy Pelosi refuses to send him the impeachment documents, does that put him in a standstill position?
Well, look, let me say, first of all, I always tell everybody, if you get a chance, buy Mitch's book, The Long Game. Mitch wrote it himself, and it gives you a flavor of what this guy's like. He's been around a long time. He's not intimidatable. Nancy doesn't scare him at all. In fact, I don't even think he thinks much about her. So if she thinks that she can dance around him and in some way maneuver him, she's just wasting her time. And I think that he has a pretty good idea what he wants to do. And his challenge is simple. He's got several senators up for re-election who are Republican. He wants to operate in such a way that they maximize their chance of getting reelected, and people back home think they've done the right job. So he's really focused on them because they're the key to him being the majority leader. And he understands that keeping control of the Senate allows us, when Trump is reelected, to continue changing the judiciary to a constitutional conservative judiciary, and that is just an enormously important goal.
The other night, Thursday night, there was the debates in the United States on the Democratic candidates. I fell asleep. So, were you able to watch them?
Well, it's very funny because I just did an interview on WMAL in Washington, and the lady who covers politics said she couldn't stay awake either. One of the challenges we have here is that Donald Trump had been an expert at reality TV. It had a #1 rated TV show for 4 years, was actually on the air for 13 years, really successful, understood the dynamics of television. None of these guys understand that. And it's just almost embarrassing to watch how bad they are. And so I think you have this period here where the Democrats are just plain boring. They're little people with little ideas. I mean, one of their debate points was about having fundraisers in a wine cave. Now, I think if you're a normal, everyday, average American, the idea of getting into an argument about wine caves just strikes you as goofy. And I think they come across looking like there's something missing, that they're just not, they're not completely there.
I mean, you scratch your head. You say, whom do we trust to be the president of the United States for that entire group? I mean, it's just Mike Bloomberg.
It is a big deal.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mike Bloomberg, you have any opinion on him?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a really, really rich guy. When he got reelected for the third time, he spent about $200 a vote. That would mean that if he was willing to spend about $12 billion, he could probably match Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not spend very much money running for president because he's such a great reality TV star that he knew how to do things without having to spend a lot of money. But it's hard for me to understand what, in the end, Bloomberg thinks he's going to achieve. I don't think the Democrats particularly like him. The Republicans certainly don't like him. And I have a hunch in the end that he's just going to quietly disappear.
You have a new book, Mr. Speaker. Tell the American people about it.
It's Trump versus China. And I wrote it because I think that China is the biggest challenge we have. I think it's very important for us to figure out what our strategies are going to be and how we're going to compete with them. And I think that they're very formidable. They're very hardworking. They're very serious about being the leading country in the world. And they're going to do everything they can to surpass us. And we need to understand that we're in for a real competition. This will be the biggest, much bigger than the Soviet Union, much bigger than Nazi Germany. They're going to really test our capacity to be able to do all these things. Now, I think in the end we can be very successful, but none of us should kid ourselves about how serious a competitor they're going to be.
So you would worry more about China than you would about Russia?
Absolutely. Russia, in the long run, is a very weak country with a very weak economy, with terrible problems of alcoholism and a declining birth rate. They're dangerous because they have so many nuclear weapons, and you have to always treat them carefully. It's like having a large grizzly bear in the backyard. But China is a dynamic, powerful country of 1,400,000,000 people. China's on the way up. Russia is not on the way up, and that makes an enormous difference in who you have to pay attention to and who you have to be concerned about.
One more time on the book, where would you buy it? I guess Amazon?
Well, you can get it at Amazon or any bookstore, Barnes & Noble. And it's Trump versus China. I'm very proud of it. I think that it really does communicate the key things we have to know in order to compete with the Chinese.
We have a minute left. What else would you like to tell the American public?
Well, most I want to tell them I hope that they have a wonderful holiday season. We have so much that we're doing that is just remarkable. I just did a podcast about aging and the breakthroughs we're having in helping people live longer. I look at the things that are happening in space. We just had some remarkable space launches. It's really, really amazing. And I think that I hope that people will take a brief moment out over the holidays, give a word of thanks for being Americans, help their neighbors, and think about the spirit of Christmas and what it all really means.
Well, Newt Gingrich, Merry Christmas to you and Calissa, and enjoy the Vatican, and we'll catch up with you